ahead and begin with a very simple applique on this mini quilt, and that is the one of the Clover. Now, the reason why I wanted to actually do this video first was to be able to show you how simple it is to take the background quilting files that you can find at Kimberbell.com and bring them into the design right there on your machine. Most machines will allow you to do this, where you can actually add a design over top of another one. So as a better frame of reference for all of us, I decided to go ahead and print out a couple of things on my printer. I want you to know exactly what is happening when we bring in background quilting files and an applique design and we bring them together. All right, so let's take a little look at my printout first. All right, so the first thing you're going to see here is that I've printed out both templates. Now this one in particular represents the pebble background, which is what it calls for in this quilt. And this is done in a 4x4 hooping. Actually, it's going to be a little bit larger, so we need a 5x7 hoop in order to do this, even though it is called a 4x4 design. All right, so with this goes in first. All right, so think in your mind, this is what's going on the machine first. It's virtually in the background. Then what we do is we add an applique to be on top. So here's the applique design. Let's visually think about this. Yep, that goes on top. Now, obviously, you've got some background behind all of this, okay? There's fabric that covers this, and then in the background is the pebbles, all right? So let's do something else here for just a minute, just so that, again, you can see it even better. I'm just going to quickly do a rough cut of this. Now, one of the things that we want to make sure that when we do background quilting is that we have to ask ourselves, do we want that quilting to go over top of the applique, or do we want it to stay in the background? And my personal preference, and this is what Kimberbell recommends as well, is that it stays in the background. That's why we call it background quilting. Now, other than if it were a pieced block, yeah, the background quilting would actually show on top of the pieced block. But again, here you see the background quilting, and then when that block is placed over top of it, do you see how all the background quilting goes behind it? And this stays as a beautiful applique on top. All right, I hope that helps you to visually see what's happening. Now let's go take a look over at the machine itself, and you can see how these two files are brought together. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over to my machine, and I'm going to just touch the button to activate it. And I'm going to find my first pebble design. And according to our instructions, it is KDQ 253. All right, so I know I have that already on my little USB stick here. And it's the 4x4 pebble design. All right, so you can see that it has come up on my screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit set. All right, that tells my machine I'm ready for it to, stitch out, but not quite yet. I'm just setting it, prepping it, laying the foundation for that applique, if you will. All right. So the next step is, before I hit embroidery, I need to add the clover, right? So go ahead and let's take a look at the machine again. You're going to see in the bottom left-hand corner, it says the word add. Now, every machine is going to be a little bit different. So again, get to know what your machine does. How does your machine, how does your brand add the, additional designs? And then that's how you're going to do it. But most likely you're going to have some kind of add feature. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the word add. And now I need to bring it up from my USB stick once again. So I'll go ahead and select that button right there. So now let's go find my Clover. And you're going to find it right there. It's KD 5130 5x7 Clover. All right. And ta-da! Looks just like the one I'm looking for, right? So I'll go ahead and hit set. All right. Now you can see very clearly that the applique design has gone on top of my background quilting file. All right. Now, don't worry that you're going to see these pebbles right behind it. The computer doesn't recognize you have fabric right there. But if your design looks like the one that you're seeing on my machine, then you are ready to go. All right. So with my background quilting file in place, my applique design file in place, I'm ready to go ahead and embroider. So now I hit embroidery. Pretty simple. Okay. So because I'm doing background quilting files, my numbering is going to be a little bit different than what you see in the instructions, all right? Because all of our background quilting has to take place first. So let's go ahead and grab our hoop, and you're going to notice that I have it already hooped with some cutaway mesh, all right? Some light cutaway mesh from Kimberbell, and that is in the 5x7 hoop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and slide my 5x7 hoop into the machine very carefully and lock that down to hold it in place. All right, so the first thing that's going to stitch out is the placement line, and it's the placement line for my batting. All right, so remember that. We're not ready to quite stitch out the block yet. We're just getting the batting ready. So I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down, and it's going to stitch out a square, and that's where I place my batting. All right, so with my square now stitched out, I'm ready to take my batting piece, and I'm simply just going to place it over top, just centering it. I don't want to line it up along the lines. I want to actually have it centered. So I'll go ahead and put my foot down and begin. This is going to go over the same stitch line 2 times. So this is your tack down stitch, again to hold the batting in place. Okay, now that that's been stitched in place, I'm ready to remove the hoop from my machine. We'll head over here to my cutting mat. I need to cut the excess batting away. So I'll go ahead and grab my fancy Kimberbell scissors. These are the duckbill applique scissors, which I absolutely love. And we're just going to trim all the way around the outside. Now the next stitch that's going to happen is the placement line for my background fabric, okay? And it's going to stitch a 1/4 inch outside of this line. And the reason for that is because this is what's going to allow us to be able to put blocks together, and you don't have any batting caught in between the seam allowances, which is really nice. It keeps that quilt looking nice and flat, right? All right, so let's go ahead, place this back into the machine, foot down, press go, and this again is the placement line for our background fabric. All right, now that I have my placement line, I'm ready to take my background fabric, and don't forget to add the little bit of fusible backing onto the back. So I've already ironed that in place, and now I'm going to place it right over the center, just like that. Now that this has been stitched down, I actually don't need to cut it out yet. That will be saved for the very end. This is just holding it in place, right? So the next step is my most favorite, and that is the background quilting. I love the look of Kimberbell's background quilting. And so now let's watch the magic happen as the pebbles stitch out onto the background. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Don't you love the texture that background quilting adds? So fun. So for purposes of this video, I'm actually going to go out and change my thread color to black just so that you can see a little bit better what is stitching out. If you're at home and you're able to see clearly where the next applique fabrics go, just go ahead and keep it the same color. But again, I'm just switching out to black right now just so that you can see it a little bit better. All right, so the placement lines for the first two clover leaves have been stitched out, and all I have to do is take my striped fabric right here and just simply place it over top of those. All right, if you need to use a little bit of Kimberbell paper tape, you certainly could do that. A little bit on top, a little bit on the bottom, just to hold it into place. I'm going to just keep my finger here for just a few seconds while it begins, and then we'll go from there. Okay, that has been stitched down, so I'm ready to remove the hoop from the machine. We'll bring it back over here to the cutting table. And this time I think I'm going to grab my little flexi snips that are found in the Kimberbell scissor box because, oh, I love these too. They're quick and easy, nice to be able to get into the little grooves of the heart tops, right? There we go. We just snip away the excess fabric. All right, pretty simple, right? Okay, I'm going to take this back to the machine. It's now going to stitch out this additional little clover petals here. So we'll put that back into the machine and do just that. So now I know exactly where to place my next fabric piece. It's going to go over top of those two petals horizontally. Just like that. And let's stitch. All right, time to trim these out. All right, so now I get to go ahead and finish this design up by changing my thread color. And you can see on the screen right here that I'm ready to do the satin stitches for my shamrocks. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread color back to green because that's the color I want it to be. And I'll go ahead and stitch that out right now. Okay, so we just have one more thing to do, and that is to stitch on these really beautiful twinkling little stars in the background. And so to do that, I'm going to change over my thread color to be gold, and then it's going to stitch the placement outline for the little stars. We're going to put mylar over top of it, and then it will stitch over top of that still in your gold thread color. All right, are you ready for this? This really adds that little extra pizzazz to your little mini quilt. I'm excited. Let's go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this little piece of mylar here and place it over top. And this time I am going to use a little bit of assistance from my Kimberbell paper tape just to hold it in place because, as we like to say, sometimes that mylar can dance on the hoop, right? As soon as it gets started. So this just kind of holds it in place so that it prevents it from shifting around too much. And now we'll go ahead and stitch out the remaining part of the stars. All right, so that's now stitched out, and actually that is the last step in this quilt block. Now, according to your machine, it's going to say you have one more, but I want you to ignore that last step, and it tells us that in the instructions. It's not necessary. It was for digitizing purposes only. So no need to stitch it out. If you accidentally do, not a big deal. You can go ahead and just use that little seam ripper and pull it out, but no need to stitch it out for now. All right, what I'm going to do finally is just go ahead and remove my hoop from the machine, bring it back over here, and now it's time to tear away that extra mylar. And it really, truly does tear away very, very easily, just like that. If you need to get into a few spots that maybe didn't tear out, you can use a little bit of tweezers to do that. I've got plenty of mylar left. I'm going to hold on to that because I want to use it for future projects, right? And another idea is if you want to add a little bit of extra sparkle, go ahead and choose a metallic thread color to be able to stitch out those stars. And that's going to add another bit of a pop to your quilt block. So either way, gold, or if you want to throw in some metallic, that would be really fun too. All right, so with that being said, we are finished with the little Clover block. Very cute, very simple, and I hope you learned something from it on how we combine our background quilting and our appliques together to make a really darling block. All right, that is all for this video. In our final video, we're going to be talking about the pot of gold. All right, ready to go? Let's do it in the next video.